Okay, it is the choices that we make that dictate the evolution or regression of the self and the higher self. Okay, first thing is to understand that the self, what I am, what you are, what everything is, actually is a tiny piece of a much larger being that in esoteric literature is known as the higher self or the oversoul or the what I call the totality, because it's everything we've been, are, and will ever be. If you're enjoying the video and you want to go deeper with me, check out my meditation masterclass. It's unlike anything. It's pinned in the comments below. But totality, oversoul, Godhead, higher self, they're all the same thing. Now, what I am, what you are, is a drop, is a piece, a tentacle of a much larger being, infinitely larger being. We're about 2.5% of this much larger being. And because we are so disconnected and have come so far from where we actually truly reside, we have no tangible experience of this. So because we're projected in such lower frequencies, we're so disconnected, we have no idea. Hence we get here, who am I? What am I doing here? Why am I here? What is the point? What am I supposed to do? What is my life plan? Etc. And then we create a human character, the ego, mind, identity. Okay, so let's talk about evolution or regression. And I think the real question is the regression aspect of this, Elaine. That's what I'm assuming. Okay, so again, we're a projection, a piece, about 2.5%, a drone, if you will, of our higher self. So how can regression occur? Okay, so stagnation is one way. Becoming addicted. Okay, you could think of karma. Okay, what we really are is this higher self exists in such a different state of being and frequency and dimension. There's no comparison between where we are and what that's like. You have to experience that for yourself. Any words I offer up will fall way short. Okay, now it is quite addicting. The lower frequencies, because it's so thick and dense and slow, and there's the tangibility of things here, solidity, it can become intoxicating and addicting, okay? And this is actually how we get karma, which is the addiction or attachment to anything low frequency. Anything low frequency. And there's a big misconception about what that really means too. So if an aspect of the higher self, which is what you and I are, becomes so completely immersed and addicted, okay, the evolution of us, as well as the higher self, since we're a piece of the evolution, stops. Okay, it's an analogy. It's a bad analogy, but think about failing second grade over and over and over and over again. Now, it's regression or de-evolution, because not only are we going to third grade, fourth grade, we're not going to third grade, fourth grade, fifth grade, etc., etc., etc. The impact that is building up by staying here over and over and over again, we're actually regressing just due to the karmic debt and karmic weight that is weighing us down. We're not evolving. We're going in the opposite direction. Now, I'll give another analogy or visual for the mind. So think of a blimp filled with helium, okay? And then let's say it blows up a balloon with its own helium, right? And throws it down outside of the blimp and throws it all the way down, right? Okay, so the higher self is the blimp and the balloon is you or I. Okay, and what's inside me and what's inside you is the same thing that is your higher self, right? Now, when that blimp throws over the balloon, right? Now, that's fine, but it's losing some of its own helium every time it does that. Think about what I'm saying. So some of the helium is projected into the balloon. Now all of a sudden the blimp drops down a little bit because it lost some of its helium. So when the higher self projects a soul, an aspect, which is the same thing, you or me, there is a slight drop because it's taking some of what it is and projecting it down. And the reason why it resides where it is because it's based upon its sentience. And as it projects some of its sentience into us, it therefore drops down a little bit. Now, that sentience that it dropped down a little bit, you and me, if it gets completely addicted and immersed here, right, this becomes a weight, a further weight down. So instead of us ascending through what we're doing here, the human experience, we're getting immersed, we're getting stuck, we're getting contaminated. And now what happens, there's this evolutionary tension that's pulling down the higher self. Thus, not only is it not maintaining its level, it's actually being pulled down. The stagnation becomes regression. So this is how we can experience this, and therefore what we are is the higher self, how the higher self can experience this. And it's all based upon choices. Everything is based upon choices. And in terms of the incarnation, it would be the choices that we make as a temporarily individualized unit of our higher self, which is also a temporary individualized unit of God, creator, source, right? You could think of ourselves as an atom of God, right? But if we get stuck here and all those energies are accumulating through karmic debt, it becomes heavier and heavier and heavier. So not only are we moving forward, we're actually getting denser, denser, denser. And the pull of the higher self is getting stronger and stronger and stronger. And so we're not evolving, we're regressing. So you could think of it as taking second grade over and over and over and over again as an analogy, right? So the evolution has stopped. At a certain point, that stagnation creates regression. Now, this does occur. It absolutely occurs. One of the things that the higher self does when there's such contamination from an aspect or a soul that's been projected always into the lower frequencies, because this is the only place these kind of situations can actually occur, what it will do is, upon death or the physical demise of the incarnation, the soul or the aspect, you or I, instead of pulling that balloon back up into the blimp, it'll only pull it up a little. And it'll put it in quarantine, if you will, which we're all familiar with. It'll put it in quarantine, so to speak, because it doesn't want to pull that sentience and those energies all the way back up because they've been contaminated. And then that would affect the entire higher self. So it pulls it back up a little bit, keeps it in quarantine, and then there's a cleansing process, right? Just like putting someone in quarantine and hopefully they start to get healthy before they can mix back with the collective consciousness, with the larger. The higher self works in the same way. So this is one thing that the higher self does in order to sort of get some of itself back, but it won't get some of itself back until it's cleansed and pured enough to rejoin what it really is. So it won't risk its entire existence if just a small part of it is contaminated. So it'll make sure it's quarantined and then cleansed in order for it to rejoin, for the tentacle to come back up, or for the balloon to come back up and join the blimp, or the tentacle of the octopus to come back up within the octopus itself, as analogies. And I know they're ridiculous, but I like ridiculous analogies. So choices, Elaine, choices. Okay? The more high vibratory or higher consciousness choices that we make, the faster the evolution of consciousness and therefore the accrual of sentience. And that's what the higher self, that's what God, that's what Source, that's what existed is interested in, its own evolution in terms of understanding itself with the greatest efficacy. And I'm obsessed with that, with the greatest efficacy of the evolution of consciousness itself. And we could say by making choices contradictory to that, we experience stagnation. And once stagnation is occurring, regression actually occurs. And now there's de-evolution. We've lost contact. We've lost understanding. We've lost that holistic perspective of what we are and how things really work. So not only are we not evolving, we're regressing, going in the wrong direction. And this can occur. What is the remedy? Choose wisely. Don't choose from this. This is simply your subconscious patterned egoic mind. Choose from the self. Choose from the love, the wisdom, and the compassion of the self, of what you really are. Your intuitive knowingness. You can never, ever go wrong doing that. This thing doesn't know much, which is why it constantly wants more and more information, because it doesn't know anything. This knows everything. This is everything. This is bankrupt. Okay, Elaine, that's a great question. I hope that explains it. And again, everyone, keep the questions coming. Send them directly to rj@ascendthefrequencies.com. And again, please share these videos. These videos are important. They will expand people's consciousness. They will raise their vibration. And this is what we all want for ourselves and for humanity. It's our destiny. It is our birthright. But it is only done through educating ourselves properly, through proper metaphysics, through proper wisdom, through authentic love. And this is how these things occur. I hope you enjoyed the video. Now, if you are desirous of more of the real you, and less of your conditioned, agitated mind, if you know that you can create a life that you're not leading right now, but you know you can, check out my meditation masterclass. It's pinned in the comments below.